afternoon, guys. It's Workin bringing you a quick update. We're going to be looking at a few coins again today. We're going to start off with Bitcoin to the US dollar. This is the 4-hour chart on Bitfinex. And by the way, guys, I hope you guys are having a wonderful week so far. Again, starting off with Bitcoin, guys. I told you guys yesterday Bitcoin was operating right here, right above this ascending what was support line here. I told you if price did end up breaking down, if we broke below 65.40, we were going to come down into this order block right here, sitting at about 6,400. I told you guys that for a few days now, and sure enough, price did end up coming down and found support right on that zone. Not a surprise. We can also see if we look over here, and even if I zoom out here on volume profile, guys, so we can get a little better view of all the price action that's taken place recently, we can see that that's right there at the point of control of our volume profile. For those of you that aren't familiar with volume profile, that is just this area right here, which just gives you a sense of the volume at each given price point, or in other words, how many trades are taking place at each given price point, and where that happens to, where that's concentrated at the most. That's called the point of control. So that's right here. You can see the tip of that right here, and that's exactly where price ended up finding support. Now, generally speaking, when price drops below that point of control, that's a bearish, very bearish indication. Above that's typically, and I'm generalizing this, a rather bullish indication. Right now, we're sitting right at that. We're teetering right at that point. Excuse me. I do find it interesting if I pull out here to the daily chart, guys. I do find it very interesting, and I've showed you guys this for many times here over the past month. But right here at this order block between 65.40 and 62.80, this is where price continues to return. Of course, we can see that with volume profile here, but this is where the majority of the trading is taking place, and we're sure enough, we're right back into that zone. Price seems to keep, it dips below, it dips above, but it seems to come right back into that zone, at least it has since early June. So so far we're back there again, guys. Now, where is price going to go from here? I do think if it drops below that point of control, we're going to come down and test here this 62.80. This is what I told you. Have been telling you guys this for a while, and price seems to be respecting these support lines so far. Now, if it does, as I said, if it breaks below this 6,400, this point of control here, 62.80 should be the next stop. If 62.80 breaks down, we're coming down to 6,100. I do think it'll be a fairly quick drop to 6,100 if we get a decisive break below 62.80, and at that point, guys, if 6,100 breaks down, we're going to come down and test new 2018 lows, in my opinion. Now, it doesn't mean that has to happen. It just means as of right now, guys, things are not looking great. Again, if I zoom back out here on the daily, guys, and I know I've continued to show you this, but I can't hammer this point home enough. If we come in here, we can see this continuation pattern. Again, I show you this every time. Price came up, massive drop. Price came up, not quite as much, but still fairly significant rise, massive drop. Price comes up again, not quite as much as the time before, massive drop. Comes up again, not as much as the time before, massive drop. Comes up again, not as much as the time before, massive drop. Comes up again, and here we are. Are we starting that massive drop once again, getting smaller and smaller and smaller, squeezed tighter and tighter and tighter? I believe that we are. And you know, whether or not we're going to come down and once again test these new lows, or whether or not we're going to get a higher low from before, it's going to be very interesting to see where this ends up, guys. But there's no question that price is continuing to get squeezed tighter and tighter, and usually when that happens, we get a massive breakout. Once it can't get squeezed tighter and tighter anymore, we get a massive breakout. Now, if we come over here, there's no better illustration than looking at the weekly RSI. If I come over here and I look at the weekly RSI and I see it's how it's been getting squeezed since February, you know, this goes on. It doesn't look like it, guys, but this goes all the way back till February. Remember, this is the weekly. And what do we have? We have a series of lower highs and higher lows, all getting squeezed within a wedge pattern here. And as we approach the apex of any wedge, what do we expect? We expect a larger breakout. Okay, what do we have on the stock RSI? We look at the stock RSI, guys. We have this is again on the weekly. We have the same thing. This is getting squeezed, not as much. This only goes back to about June, or excuse me, July. Not even June, but July. But still, we're getting squeezed tighter and tighter here. We can see it on the stock. What do we have on the MACD? Also on the weekly. We can see it's getting squeezed tighter and tighter in here on the histogram here. Not breaking up, not breaking down, but just getting squeezed tighter. So this tells me also, what do I have? If I go over here, oh, sorry about that. If I go over here and I look at our moving averages, this is on the daily. What do we see? We can see that the 8, 21, and 55-day EMA are all starting to converge. We can see that the 50-day moving average is also converging, all right on top of one another here. And we can also see all of a sudden where these Bollinger Bands are starting to bottleneck. So again, suggesting we may see a larger break here in the near future. So all these things point to, guys, this pattern of high low high low high low retracing, as I've told you guys countless times till you're blue in the face, retracing to the 618 fib and then falling right back down. This pattern should break. Now it may break down, and if it does, if price does end up breaking down, guys, I think there's a good chance that we're going to come down, test 2018 lows, possibly come down to about 54.50. If 54.50 does end up breaking down, guys, well, I'll just break it down here and come over here to the weekly to kind of show you. If 54.50 does end up breaking down, I do think we're going to come down into this, or in other words, if we break below this order block, we're going to come down into this order block here, as I've showed you guys countless times when I pull out to the larger chart, and that's between about 4,600 to 4,400. I don't believe price would go much lower than this. Doesn't mean it can't. Just please, I do believe that this would be the floor. At this point, everyone's going to be screaming that price is going down to 3,000. All the bears are going to be entering the market. All the bulls will have left. Everyone's going to say it's a sure thing. 3,000 is coming. It's a matter of time. Bitcoin is dead. And I think at that point, we're going to get a massive turnaround. Now, does that have to happen? No. This is just probability tells me I think there's a good chance that that's how it's going to end up playing out if we end up breaking below 2018 lows. And that's a big if. I'm not saying that's going to happen at this point. Excuse me, guys. So zooming back in here to the 4-hour chart, where is price at the moment? Well, if I go, we got this swing low here from this larger wick, which is hard to see. But if I go swing low, swing high, where are we at? What do we got? We got a perfect hit right off the 618 fib. I mean, perfect. Little bit of a wick inside the golden pocket here, guys, but just a perfect hit off the 618 fib. If this ends up holding, guys, this would be an ideal place for price to bounce. This would be perfect. I don't know that's going to happen. We may see price break down, test 62.80, but this would be an ideal place for price to end up bouncing. We'll see if that ends up happening. We're not seeing an increase in volume, and we have to see an increase in volume, guys. We have to get new buyers in this market if this thing is going to end up taking off the way we hope it does. If things just end up dwindling like they are, and money just keeps changing hands back and forth between the same old players, price is going to eventually just dump. They can't just be held up this long. If we come over here and we look at short positions, we're looking at Bitcoin. Short positions did fall off the chart here. They are starting to rally just a little bit today, but nothing significant. We've got shorts at about 28.5 and longs at 26.0. So almost, very close between long and short positions right now, which means market makers can really push this thing any direction they want. Long positions are not stacking at all. Longs are basically still just kind of up, down, no real significant move at all with long positions. If we come over here and we look at our moving averages, we can see that they've just collapsed. Again, this is on the daily, as I just showed you. We're below the 8, 21, 55. We're below them all at this moment. We look at the 4 hour, 4 hours, same way. Now the 4 hours finding some support. We've got the we're expanding on the outer Bollinger Bands here, getting stretched here. That's maybe giving us some temporary support. However, if we come here to the daily, we can see the Bollinger Bands have plenty of room to drop, which is not a great sign. So at this point, I'm staying out of the market. Again, as I told you guys yesterday, I do not see a good trade setup. We might see a nice little bounce if price, I told you yesterday, if price comes down to 62.80, depending on how we get there. I might take excuse me, guys, got the hiccups there. Excuse me, I might take a very quick scalp trade off of 62.80, targeting about 64, 6,500. That'd be a pretty risky play, though, guys. If you do take that, it'd have a very tight stop. Personally, right now, I'm not seeing any good trade setup at all, guys. And in my opinion, it's just best to hands off. Wait and see where the smart money is going to take this market, because they can take it any direction they want at this moment. Wait and see, and then go ahead and enter at that point. If we come over here looking at EOS, guys, EOS is, again, as I showed you yesterday, guys, is just very, very similar to Bitcoin, almost scarily so. Price did end up breaking below this descending resistance line here. I told you if it did that, we're going to at least come down and test 520 to 535. It barely acknowledged that. It fell below that zone, and now that's acting as resistance. It fell into this order block right here, finding some support right there into this small little order block here. But I don't know if that, unless price ends up breaking back up into this order block between 520 and 535, I do expect it to possibly end up, and especially if Bitcoin falls, price is going to fall further, test about $5. Now we are still above the point of control on EOS. We look over here and we zoom back out. Always zoom back out, guys, to make sure you're getting a good idea of where the actual point of control is. You're not just zoomed in here, but we can see that sitting somewhere about $5 between about $4.95 and $5.05. not what I wanted. So if I look at that, guys, we're still barely above it, and we're finding a little bit of support right on top of that zone. But if price does end up breaking below that point of control, guys, it could fall very quickly. We do have this strong support down here at 473 to 467. That would be the last stand. If that does break down, we're going to come down to at least 450. I think very likely, though, we'd come back down to possibly 428 and even $4 to 350. I still have buy orders sitting between $4 and $3.50. I have since price came back here in August and mid-August. Doesn't mean it's ever going to get filled. Just means if it ever does get down there, that'd be a must buy in my opinion. For now, EOS is not looking. I don't see a good trade set up with EOS at all. We have this double bottom on the RSI here. This is on the 4-hour. On the 4-hour RSI, this kind of double bottom pattern. We are getting some hidden bullish divergence on the stock MAC, or excuse me, on the stock. Sorry, guys, not on the stock RSI, on the MACD. So we did have this lower low. Now this was an uptrend here, so we created a lower low and an uptrend. That's hidden hidden bullish divergence, and that would suggest this is why we're seeing this kind of some support pattern here. We could foresee that with this hidden bullish divergence, but again, we don't have the volume to back it up. So that tells me that might be short-lived, and we might have some price might have a lower. Might be dropping down further, I should say. Sorry, guys. I can't really talk at the moment. I'm looking at 3 different things at the moment. You can't see that, obviously. If we go swing high, swing low, or excuse me, swing low, swing high off of this, we can see the price came down, fell below the 618 fib, hasn't quite hit the 786. The 786 coincides nicely with right around $5. Wouldn't be surprised. I want to see a strong test of that $5 region between 5 and 496. At that point, we might get a strong bounce, or it might just collapse. But I would like to see price test that zone, and I do think that we are going to test that zone just based on what I'm seeing right here. We did not get that massive bounce at all. This just tells me that there's a lot of weakness. This is temporary, and that very likely we are going to see price come back down and test at least $5, in my opinion. Doesn't mean it has to. Just means I think we're going to get a retest of $5 here very, very soon. And how price reacts when we get that retest is going to be very, very telling. We come over here and we look at Ethereum. Ethereum broke down completely from this ascending what was acting as support. It did end up breaking down, didn't even acknowledge this 226 to 220 zone that I was telling you guys about yesterday. Fell right through that zone. I told you if it broke through that zone, we're going to find support in this area right here. That's exactly what happened. Price even whipped through it a little bit, but is sitting here and consolidating in this zone between about 212 and 206. If that does break down, I think we're going to come back down into this zone here between 196 and 178. This wouldn't be a bad area to stack in buy orders. Now, if it does come down that low, guys, depending on what Bitcoin is doing, we know that Ethereum is tied to Bitcoin like all other altcoins. If we get into this zone, this wouldn't be a bad idea, especially in the lower portion of the zone, especially anything below 190 wouldn't be a bad buy in my opinion. But I would stack orders possibly between about 190 and 178 with a very, very tight stop, knowing that price could very easily fall down to this zone here at 159 to 155 if it does come to that. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just saying for now, I don't see a good trade setup until price gets below at least 190. To the upside, I would like to see price end up getting a nice bounce. See if we test this. What was resistance should act as, what was support should act as resistance again, guys. And let's see if we can get price above this ascending resistance line again. But for now, things are looking rather bearish. I wouldn't be surprised to see price come back down and test this zone right down here again between 196 and 198. If I pull my swing low, swing high, what do we have? We can see what price is sitting perfectly right on top of the 786 fib. Wouldn't be a bad place for. Whoop, sorry guys, didn't mean to do that. I just switched over to long positions. There we go. This wouldn't be a bad place to expect a bounce, guys. We're not getting any follow through. We're not getting any volume. So we're gonna have to wait and see how Ethereum plays out. I think Ethereum is just following in Bitcoin's footsteps at this point. And finally, guys, we're going to end off with Ripple. Ripple obviously went on this tear, coming up here all the way to about 80 cents before completely collapsing. Last time I talked about Ripple, I was warning you guys, do not FOMO in. This thing eventually was going to collapse. Nothing goes up in a straight line without a major correction. Price ended up coming up, finding some support right here, falling down, finding some support right here. Kind of, if I pull in here to the 4-hour chart, entered this wedge pattern and then just completely broke down. Broke back down into what we expected here, which was this support zone here at 44 cents to 47 cents. cents off of this order block right over here. That's acting as a decent support right now, although it fell all the way down, didn't find support until the very bottom of that zone at about 44 cents. We can see since it's risen to about 45 cents, somewhere thereabouts. If this zone does break down, there's a little bit of support right below that sitting at about 43, but if that does end up breaking down, guys, it's going to be a very quick drop back down to this zone here, which starts at about 35 cents to about 32 cents. And realistically speaking, guys, I do think there's a good chance that Ripple is going to end up collapsing into this zone, especially if Bitcoin does end up correcting further. If Bitcoin corrects further, there's no question Ripple is going to end up dropping from its current price, in my opinion. I say no question, guys. There's never, nothing is ever without a question in the crypto market. But I should say my strong opinion is if Bitcoin does end up breaking down, Ripple is going to break down again, guys, and we're going to come into this order block, at least this order block between 35 cents and 32 cents. Now, if you wanted to take a trade, I'd have some buy orders sitting in there between 32 and 33 cents possibly. That is a very risky trade right now, especially considering we really don't know what was going on with Ripple or what is going to go on with Ripple going forward. We just know that it is correcting massively at this point, guys, and this looks like to be the next zone if price does break down, the next zone of support. This wouldn't be a bad idea to target it, or to have these buy orders in sitting at about between 34 and 32 cents, but I would have an extremely tight stop loss, guys. It's extremely tight stop loss, but I can see price breaking down, hitting that zone, and assuming Bitcoin finds support and even bounces, we can get a nice strong bounce off of Ripple as well. But remember, Ripple is going to do whatever Bitcoin does exponentially. So if Bitcoin drops, Ripple is going to drop exponentially. If Bitcoin rises, Ripple is going to rise exponentially. That seems to be the game that's playing at the moment. Many altcoins are that way. I think Ripple even more so at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it there, guys. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please let me know in the comment section below. As always, I would appreciate an upvote, re-steam, or a like, depending on where you're viewing this. And until next time, guys, please trade safe. Take care of yourselves. This is Workin, signing out.